I did my degree in psychology. Following that, I worked in sales for many years and then worked in corporate marketing. So that was all going lovely. That was for a big telecommunications company, and then got made redundant. Following my redundancy there, I thought I'd like to work outside of the corporate world. So this is now in 2019, which we all know is the year of COVID-19. So at the Christmas 2018, got a job for a small little marketing company, little family firm, really lovely. And then obviously the pandemic hit in March. Following being furloughed for a couple of months, at the end of the first lockdown, got made redundant. So that was my second redundancy, so it wasn't great, but I understood that it was to do with the pandemic. But the thing with redundancy is it's always very hard and it knocks your confidence, even though it's not necessarily about you. And I knew it wasn't about me. I knew it was about the pandemic, but, you know, it was still a bit of a blow. Managed to get another job, though, another marketing job, fantastic, for a little smaller family-run marketing agency. Love working there, fantastic people. And that was all going very well. They've been very successful in the first lockdown because they were still getting customers coming in, and it was the rise of e-commerce as well. So lots of people who weren't online already wanted to go online and create e-commerce platforms and online shops and that sort of thing. So that was really good for them. As time went on, we came across the second lockdown. And then as we got into Christmas, we got furloughed. And I thought, oh, I've been here before. But during that time, to keep myself busy during the lockdown and the furlough period, qualified as an NLP practitioner. So NLP, for those who don't know, is neuro-linguistic programming. And it's becoming the best version of you by doing techniques that help you become more confident, develop your self-esteem, that sort of thing. Massively helped me because obviously I'd been impacted by that with my redundancies previously. Loved it so much, went on to do my master practitioner, which was quite fortunate because in February this year, I got made redundant again. So that's two redundancies like in less than 12 months. So that is absolutely crazy. Didn't feel as depressed or upset about it as I had previously because I'd learned lots of NLP techniques, which was absolutely great. So wanted to start my own practice and doing life coaching. And that's where Inspired by Colette came from. So following my redundancy, I wasn't quite meaning to go self-employed at that time, but yeah, I thought, well, maybe it's a sign. So opened my life coaching practice in February following my redundancy and not looked back since, really.
May I ask, when you were made redundant in each of those roles, what was the first thought that came into your head?
Oh, it was like a feeling of dread, like, how am I going to pay the bills? This has happened to me before. Like, job hunting's hard. It takes up a lot of time. I had experience for my first redundancy, obviously. So it took me about 6 months to find a suitable role following my first redundancy, which is a long time. That's half a year, isn't it? So yeah, the thought of doing that again. And also with redundancy, with applying for new roles comes an awful lot of rejection. And that's quite a difficult pill to swallow. So I wasn't overly enamoured by the thought of going through that again, because it does knock your self-esteem and it does knock your confidence massively.
Indeed, and it's often said that it's easier to move from one job to another than look for a job when you're redundant.
Yeah.
What did you learn about yourself as a person from each of those redundancy exercises that you were involved with?
I think the biggest thing I learned was resilience, which is quite a crazy lesson to learn, really. It's not something I'd ever had to deal with before. In my first job in telecommunications, my marketing job in telco, I was there for 15 years. So I felt very secure in my job. I felt very safe. I felt very settled. Like I didn't know how I would deal with a redundancy. But yeah, after the first one, and I got another job, I felt more resilient. And after my my third redundancy, the redundancy this year, I thought, do you know what? Yes, I can do this. I've done this twice before now. I know what I'm doing. I've got my confidence back, and I'm ready to be self-employed, which is crazy, because if you'd have asked me when I worked in corporate marketing if I would ever like to be self-employed, I would have said absolutely not. And it's quite weird that it's all turned around now, and now here I am. So yeah, quite weird.
I presume after 15 years in a company, the redundancy you got was a cushion for you. Looking back in hindsight, do you think you would have been better off getting a coach at that time and making the brave jump from working in corporate marketing into self-employment?
Actually, that's a very good point. Yes, I would have. However, being caught up in the big corporate world for such a long time, I didn't even know what a life coach was, really. I didn't understand coaching. I didn't understand why people would need coaching. It was only when I did my NLP qualification that I really started to see the benefits of what it could do and how it could help people, and how it actually helped myself as well, because I've done a lot of self-coaching also.
Oh. Can you just expand on that there for me while I think of another question here? Sorry.
No, that's fine. Yeah. So, yeah, obviously we have like mentors and things like that in the corporate world, where if we want to go for a higher position or we want to move departments and things like that, we can be mentored, which is obviously a form of corporate coaching, isn't it? And it was something I thought about, but I never really saw the benefit. I never really saw the point. And I thought, oh, well, I'll just apply for another job and it'll be absolutely fine. But that's because I was in my little safe bubble in the corporate world, I think. And I was sort of happy where I was. It was working out well for what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. So it was only when the smaller company redundancies came, that's when I thought, oh, actually, yeah, that looking back on it, a coach would have been really helpful.
Yeah. And when you were made redundant by telco, did you make the mistake that I made, having your friends at work, that your whole life was based around your colleagues at work? You socialized with them, not alone worked with them. That's a mistake I made in one job myself. And when redundancy happened then, the door was just shut firmly in my face. I had nothing to turn to and nowhere to go to. Did you have that experience with telco?
Do you know what? No, and that's because of how I worked. So I live in Chester in the UK, and I worked in London. So I did 2 days from home. So I had all my friends at home and my family and everything. And then I went to London for 3 days in the week. So I had my work colleagues in London. So I had the best of both worlds, really. So I was very lucky. And also because the company was so big, lots of people did the same thing as me. So they commuted, in from all different parts of the UK, and spent 2 days at home, 3 days in London as well. So we had our little community, staying over in hotels and having dinner with each other. So we had a nice little like work family thing going on there. But when I came home, I had my friends and family here. So I had quite a nice balance with it. So I was very lucky, because I appreciate it's not like that for everybody.
What inspired you to use the pun to set up Inspired by Colette?
You know what? I did think, what am I going to call my coaching business? And lots of coaches use their own name. And I was saying to my friends, I just want people to be inspired by me. I just want people to be inspired by what I do, and like inspired by the techniques. And they were like, what, inspired by Colette? And I was like, yeah. And that's where it came from. So it just sort of, yeah, it just came from conversations, really. And the name just sort of stuck, really.
Yeah. Let me ask you, what got you into marketing in the first place, considering that you are a psychology graduate?
So quite a lot of psychology comes into marketing. And when I finished my degree, I'd been working in sales anyway, in a chemist, as a part-time job at uni, as we do. And then I got myself a full-time sales job working for Orange, the telecommunications company, back as it was then, following uni. I worked in sales for many, many years, but there's not really a massive progression plan. You can progress to like a regional manager. and hire that way. But it wasn't really what I wanted to do. I was always interested in why people buy and the thought process behind it and what made them tick, and what about our marketing that we had in store that, you know, inspired them to buy, on top of like our sales pitches as well. So I was fortunate to come across as a common opportunity to work in the marketing department for 6 months, which is fantastic. So I jumped at the chance to do that and never looked back, fell in love with it, loved what I did. And quite a lot of the psychology that I learned in my degree came into developing campaigns and sales aids and things like that for the stores. So yeah, I just loved it.
Yeah, I think one of the commonalities between marketing and coaching is emotional attachment, because with marketing, you're trying to get people to see the benefit of a product or service and get them to buy it. And I think the same with coaching, you're trying to get people to see the value you deliver in your service as a coach. And hopefully people will take on board that and engage you as a client, as a coach. They're the client, obviously. Mm-hmm. What does the future hold for Colette Gallimore?
Wow, that's a very interesting question. Because if you'd asked me that this time last year, I wouldn't have known. But I guess what I want to do this year is continue building on the success of my coaching, have more clients and help more people. I've really seen the benefit of coaching through the pandemic. There's been all sorts of crazy stuff that we've never really had to deal with, like obviously isolation and lockdown, and then feeling very anxious socially about coming out of lockdowns. Lots of very confident people have suffered for the first time in their lives with social anxiety. So, and I think there's more of that to come as we continue through the year. So yeah, I think the future holds lots of people to help, and lots of positivity. That's what I'd like to put, but I'd like things to be more positive, because at the moment things seem quite negative. So yeah, growing my client base. I'm looking forward to meeting lots more exciting new people.
Very good. I'm going to touch a few buttons here now with you, Colette. Thinking back to each of those 3 occasions that you were made redundant, just think about this for a minute. What one redundancy was handled well by the employer, and which of those redundancies was handled poorly by the employer? And how did that impact you as a person?
Oh, that's a very good one. The corporate one was probably handled the worst. I had to do a lot of fighting to get my redundancy there, because at the time I was seconded. So there was lots of confusion about how that would work to build my redundancy package. So I had to do a lot of research, had to really fight for my rights there. So I wasn't particularly impressed with how that was handled. The best handled redundancy was my most recent one. That was quite a sad one as well, because I joined a family-run marketing agency, and they'd wanted to expand for such a long time. They'd done it through the pandemic, and they'd achieved so much through the first lockdown. They'd achieved their goals and grown their team. And then it all crumbled down around them following 2 more lockdowns. So that was very sad. And we're still in touch now. They're lovely people. So hopefully one day there might be an opportunity to do a bit of freelance work there, because I'd like to just keep my hand in the marketing as well as the coaching. So yeah, they handled that really well.
Great answer. I know redundancy can be difficult, and I've seen instances where redundancy myself has been handled poorly, and people have left feeling very bad about themselves. There's nothing worse than that, because when you're out of work for 6 months, as you were, it can be a very lonely place, and you're thinking the whole world is against you, and you've got nothing to do except, get up in the morning and stare at the 4 walls at home, or walk the dog, or whatever the case may be. But there's a lot of emptiness in people's lives, and they feel very lonely, very frustrated, and very demotivated. Looking back at those 3 redundancies also, what was your lowest point? Or could you explain that for the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. The first redundancy wasn't great, but because I've been there so long, like you said, I got a nice little nest egg, so I was able to pay off a lot of debt and things like that. And also because it took so long, I managed to secure a role, like a temporary role, before the end of my contract, basically. So that actually worked out quite well. But yeah, the lowest point I think was the second one, because you just think, oh, it's all happening again. And it did make me feel very depressed, and I did suffer quite badly with my mental health. I guess in a way that was looking back on it, it wasn't great at the time. I felt very anxious. I was very upset a lot of the time. I felt really depressed. I knew I had to be motivated to find another job, but I didn't really want to have to do that because I wasn't really feeling in the mood for it, if you know what I mean. So I felt like I couldn't come across as my best self in the interviews because I didn't feel like my best self. But I suppose looking back on it now, it was a positive thing, because now I've got my NLP practitioner, a master practitioner. I've got techniques to help never feeling like that again. So that was a positive. And if I'd known about that at the time, I'd have loved to have jumped on some of those things and not gone through that. But we live and learn, I suppose, don't we?
Yes, indeed. What would you say to a person who's been made redundant from their job?
I'd say it's not about you, because it feels like it's about you. It feels very personal, but it's not about you. It's about something else that you can't control, be that lack of customers, be that restructures. There's something else that's gone on, and it's not about you. And it's easy to say, don't take it personally, because people said that to me at the time. And I was just like, well, yeah, but, I've got to pay bills. I've got a mortgage, I've got things to pay for. I've got to put food on the table. But ultimately, yeah, don't give up. It's not about you. And there's lots of techniques you can use to make yourself feel better going through that process. There's lots of support out there. You've just got to ask for it.
Do you think people should, post redundancy, take a break from the workplace and clear their mind and re-energize themselves before applying for work? Because there's nothing worse than feeling defensive in an interview situation where you're trying to explain away why you were made redundant, and inside yourself you're feeling negative. I think that's one that, would you recommend that people take a break post redundancy from work or from searching for a job?
I mean, ideally, if you can. For me, it wasn't really a case that I could, because it would have been nice to have a little break, but I was really worried about the money situation. So I felt like I had to keep plodding on, trying to get another job, because I thought, the redundancy money will only last so long, and I want to sort of save it, bank it, really, rather than spend it. So I was almost a little bit desperate to find a new role, because I didn't want to eat into my money. But if you can absolutely afford to do that, it is good to get yourself in a better mindset. But for me, I had to plod on through, I had to power on through. Yeah. So I suppose it all depends on the individual circumstance.
True. Moving on to a more enjoyable part of the conversation. What was the biggest lesson you've learned so far since starting Inspired by Colette as a business?
Don't give up, basically. It's my little mantra. Yeah, don't give up. You are capable of more than you think you are. If you said to me, like I mentioned before, if you'd said to me this time last year, well, you'll have your own business, I'd have been like, oh no, absolutely not. But yeah, don't give up, and follow your dreams. If you believe that you can do something, and you believe you can make a difference, it's probably your path in life, so you should follow it.
And what has been your biggest achievement since you started your business?
I guess the biggest achievement is starting the business, because before I got made redundant, the most recent time, I was always thinking, oh, I might just start my business in September. But literally, because I got made redundant in February, I just thought, you know what? It's not quite ready. Let's just run with it and see what happens. So actually doing that and making it a success in such a short amount of time has been a massive achievement, and more than I would ever have thought I was capable of. But I don't know whether that's just a bit of a limiting belief, really, because obviously I was capable of it because I've done it. So
I always remember a man saying to me one time, throw something at the wall see what comes back in terms of starting a business. In other words, get started and see what reaction you get from people. What has been the reaction to your business from your friends, your family, your former colleagues? What feedback have they given you in terms of starting a business?
They think it's amazing. As part of my NLP practitioner as well, there's so much practice you have to do. You've got to practice all the techniques. So they've all been my guinea pigs. They've all got to experience NLP firsthand. And it's stuff that they didn't really know about and stuff that they could apply to their everyday lives as well. So they've learned a lot. Bless them for being my little volunteers. But yeah, they're all they're all loving it and the benefits. And they've also put a few recommendations my way as well, which is great, because I think with coaching, referral marketing is really important, because it's quite hard to contact somebody out of the blue to ask for support with life coaching and confidence and things like that. It's quite a personal thing. So to be warmly referred by someone else who is a friend or family member seems to be a really good referral path. So yeah, they've been great. They've been massively supportive.
Yeah. How have you coped with developing your brand, I should say, in a pandemic situation where, networking is all done online, there's no in-person networking meetings, so you're really relying on feedback over the internet, I suppose you could say. How have you coped with developing your brand in your business during this pandemic? And what methodology have you used?
And that's been the easy part for me, because branding's all about marketing, isn't it? So I found that quite easy. But when I spoke to other people, they find that quite hard, which I found quite strange. But I think I find it easy because that's my background. So yeah, I've really enjoyed doing my own brand for myself rather than following someone else's brand guidelines. So yeah, I've really loved that. As for networking over Zoom, because when I worked for telco, I worked, like I said before, 2 days at home, 3 days in the office, and the 2 days from home were all done over conference calls anyway, which are quite monotonous. And I much prefer Zoom because you can see people. So I've as a networker, I've never really done in-person networking, I suppose. So to me, Zoom is just the norm, and I love it. And it's so good because you don't have all the travel costs. You don't have to figure out where places are to go and meet people. You can do quite a lot of Zoom in a day. So it's really effective for me. And I do all my coaching over Zoom as well. So yeah, Zoom's like my new best friend.
Look at you, indeed, because some people talk about, being exhausted after using Zoom for a day or two, Zoom burnout and all that sort of stuff. If you were to start your professional life again, would you go from university straight to self-employment, or would you go to the corporate workplace?
Oh, that's a good question. Do you know, I think I still would do the corporate. I learned a lot through my career in corporate, and it's nice to have been in the corporate world and in the small business world as well, and now in the self-employed world. So I feel like I've had a go in each area, really. So yeah, I don't think I would change it. I think I'm a big believer in everyone's path follows a specific journey. So I feel like if I did it again, I would do it the same.
And final question for you there, Colette, is how can the audience get in contact with you, and what offer do you have for the audience today?
So you can get in touch with me. I'm on LinkedIn under Inspired by Colette, that's my company one, and I've got my personal one as well, which is Colette Gallimore. And you can get in touch with me on Facebook under Inspired by Colette, and on Instagram under Inspired by Colette. So it's probably easier to do it that way.
And what offer do you have for the audience?
So I'd like to offer the audience today 50% off your first coaching session with me. So if you are thinking about taking up life coaching, or you need to improve your confidence or build your self-esteem, I always do a free 30-minute discovery session, which is free anyway, just to look at what you're looking to get out of it and how I can help you. And then my first chargeable session, I'd like to offer 50% off.
And should people contact you directly for that, or make an appointment through Calendly?
You can do it through Calendly. I've also got my website, which is Inspired by Colette, and you can book on on for the virtual coffee via the website. And then if we go ahead, I can send my Calendly link, and then we can book in your proper coaching session as well.